Again, welcome to the Stronger Memory Facilitator Update meeting. And we are having Kathy Tompkins and Emily O'Hara from George Mason University speaking to us today about research on stronger memory.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you all. I think I've been on this call before, so I may have talked to some of you in the past, but we're very excited to present the results. We have 3 publications out there, so we're going to talk about all 3 of those today and answer any questions that you may have. So for those of you I haven't spoke with before, again, I'm Kathy Tompkins. I am faculty in the Department of Social Work here at Mason, and I'm the Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs in our college, the College of Public Health. But most importantly, in this context, I am a gerontologist and really enjoy doing research that really focuses on these non-pharmacological interventions and how we can use these interventions to help stimulate the brain so that we stay active and healthy. So I will pass it on to Emily.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Ihara. I'm also faculty of the Department of Social Work here at George Mason. Also happen to be the department chair, but when we have time, Kathy and I get into all kinds of trouble doing research. So it's great fun, and we're excited to share the 3 studies that we have. So can I go ahead and share my screen? Okay, we'll do that. Maybe. Okay, hopefully you are seeing a green screen. Yes, great. Yeah. So we titled this Strengthening Minds, Strengthening Communities, Results from the Stronger Memory Program. So we're going to share the results from a series of studies examining the Stronger Memory Program, which you all know because you're facilitators. So this represents the collaboration that we at George Mason have with Goodwin Living and then various other community-based organizations. And we have both quantitative and qualitative results to share. So probably you all know this already, but I think we are all aware that cognitive decline, including Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, is a growing public health challenge. In the United States, over 11% of adults over age 45 report subjective cognitive decline or a self-perceived worsening of memory and thinking skills. And it's estimated that 12 to 18% of people age 65 and older are living with mild cognitive impairment, with 10 to 15% developing dementia every year. So while there's currently no cure for dementia, research increasingly shows that non-pharmacological lifestyle-based interventions can slow or even prevent decline. And so that's where the Stronger Memory Program comes in. I guess I don't really have to do an overview of Stronger Memory since you all know it very well, but just to remind us, it was developed by Goodwin Living to stimulate the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for memory retrieval, concentration, and decision-making. And so, the idea of the 30-minute cognitive regimen, 10 minutes of each reading aloud, handwriting, and doing simple math problems, it's really about having exercises that are intentionally uncomplicated, focusing on consistent mental engagement rather than difficulty. So the study that was just published actually looks at our first phase where we did a quasi-experimental pre-post design. We had 102 complete results, I guess. So we're using that to present the results of 102 older adults. Participants completed the 12-week program, and we used the mini MOCA, which is a brief version of the Montreal Cognitive Assessment to assess, any changes. And our results showed an improvement in cognitive function from pre to post test, particularly in areas such as recall, attention, and verbal fluency. Participants also reported feeling sharper and more confident in their daily tasks. And then even more encouraging, these improvements were achieved without medication, using a simple replicable structure that participants can continue independently.
Emily, I'm just going to ask you to hold for 1 second because
Sure.
we did have a great comment in chat that today, because we are joined by a lot of people today, some have heard of Stronger Memory but don't necessarily know what the program entails. So you did mention that briefly, and we'll just quickly let everybody know that this is a program freely accessible to all that consists of doing exercises with the intent of exercising the prefrontal cortex, which has been shown to be very helpful with memory, word retrieval, some executive function as well. And the goal would be to spend approximately 10 minutes a day writing by hand, 10 minutes a day reading out loud, and up to 10 minutes a day of doing some simple math exercises. Thank you for going back to that. And you would want to do those, really the goal would be to try and do those 5 days a week. So a total of 30 minutes, 5 days a week is ideal. Of course, more is always better. And when George Mason has been studying participants in research, the participants sometimes are in groups, sometimes individuals. The idea and the intent is that they would try to do exactly as I described, but we have learned, of course, over time, people are people and life gets in the way. So sometimes people are not doing quite as much. Other people are doing more than 30 minutes, more than 5 days a week. But that's really the basic premise of the program. It certainly can be adapted. That's one of the really great things about it. If someone is unable to do all 3 exercises, we often encourage them to try to at least do 2 of them. And we've had a lot of success adapting some of the exercises for different conditions that people may have. But that's kind of it in a nutshell, the overview of the program. So I'll let you go back to it. We did just have someone also ask about the selection criteria for the studies. I know, and you'll be discussing 3 of the studies today, but were these adults living independently or in assisted living? So thanks for letting me hop in.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I was not monitoring the chat. So, and yes, so the selection criteria. So for this study, we had several groups participating in Goodwin Living. So we were looking at those folks, and then we also were, we reached out to the villages. And so these were people living in villages and aging in place villages across the country. So depending on, their interest in participating in the research, some of them were, those villages were administering the program on their own. And then some people opted in to participate. So that was for this particular study. I say Northern Virginia, but they were actually across the country. So I shouldn't have said that. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. Maybe I should look at the chat. Let's see, do the problems need to be written? Oh, good question. I think,
Can you guys,
Kathy,
hear
and
me?
now we can hear you. Yes, Kathy, now we can hear
Okay.
you.
I didn't know what was happening. So sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. There are questions coming in. I don't know if it would be, we could certainly after we present each article, stop and
Yes.
answer the questions. Is that a good idea? We'll just go back up. The one that when we were talking about the overview of Stronger Memory, they did ask about the math problems if they needed to be written. And I think that's a good question. I don't know what you guys say to folks, Teresa, but from my perspective, like the reasoning behind the handwriting versus on the computer, right? I feel like it's the same kind of thing where when you're actually, the math problems are more about reaction time, right? So they're simple, not complicated, really testing your ability to just write the answers, 3 plus 3, 2 minus 1, those kinds of things. But when you're writing, there's more stimulation. Some of the research shows that there's more stimulation to your frontal cortex. So that's what we're looking for, right? Like how these brain exercises really stimulate the frontal cortex. So I think the idea is the writing, whether it's writing or answering the math problem, is more beneficial for the stimulation.
Yes, yes. And that is our answer as well. That if you physically are able to write, we really, really would like you to do the handwriting portion and to write the answers to the math. If you're not physically able, then we can get into some adaptations. But yes, it is definitely advantageous and has been shown over typing or even just over saying the answer out loud, that there's a lot more to it. And I do think it's a great idea, now that we've kind of given some more background on that we will revisit all of the questions that come in chat at the end. But I thank you both for kind of stepping back and setting the stage for those people who have come in with some great questions already.
Awesome. Okay. So I don't think I need to repeat this. The bottom line is that we saw some improvement in cognitive functioning pre and post for these 102 older adults that were statistically significant. And so some of the implications are that stronger memory effectively enhances cognitive performance. And as we discussed, right, it's a very accessible, low-cost way to that can be sustained independently by people. So it's a nice way to do something that is not necessarily costly. That's low cost. Okay, so with the same group, we also did focus groups. Kathy, I didn't know if you wanted to
Sure.
talk about the results of the focus groups.
Sure, I can do that. So with this 102 participants, we were very excited to get 100. We were shooting for 100 and we got 102. So what we did is we asked if any of those same folks would be interested in participating in a focus group with us. So the study that Emily just presented on was more of a quantitative study where they filled out questionnaires pre-post, which is very important to get more of an objective, the methodology is complicated, but to get more of an objective perspective than doing focus groups. But when you get this kind of information, the satisfaction with the Strong Memory program is what we were getting at. And we heard as we were doing the interviews for the initial study that people were still doing the Strong Memory program even after the research part. So we ran it for 12 weeks, right? So even after that part was over, people were still enthusiastic enough to keep the Stronger Memory program going. Certainly is the goal, right? So from a practice perspective. From a research perspective, we're always curious about that because, we had little incentives for folks to participate in the study, and the fact that they're still continuing the study, we always want to ask the why. Like why are you still intrigued enough to keep on with the study? So that was our two general questions were about satisfaction and about the importance for them to continue doing stronger memory. So we ran these focus groups. We analyzed the data by coding the data. Emily and I always, I think I can say always, most of the time, maybe I should say, involve students on these research projects with us. So we've taught our students how to code for many of the projects that we're working on in one specific way. So it's a grounded theory analysis technique is how we teach students to code. So we went through all of the focus group transcripts. We had 30 people in total complete the focus groups, and I think we ran maybe 3 to 5 different focus groups to get these 30 participants. And at the end of the day, what we found are these 5 themes. So the themes around motivating, appreciating, taxing, which I'll talk about in a second, committing, and enhancing. So these were kind of the themes that people told us about when we were asking these broad questions around, are you satisfied with the Stronger Memory program? What is it about the Stronger Memory program that you like? What are some challenges with the program? And then tell us a little bit about why, if you are continuing after the research ended, tell us your story about that. Like, why are you continuing the program? So some folks say they started the Stronger Memory program and oftentimes continued it out of this desire to prevent memory loss, right? Maintain their mental sharpness. So there's lots of media out there that is, recently talked more about brain exercise and the importance of that. So folks are really looking for things. Oftentimes folks are looking for brain health activities, and then responding to family history of dementia. So as we get older, there's oftentimes this fear around cognitive decline and dementia, and it becomes heightened a bit if we've seen family members and friends go through it, right? So some folks are motivated to do what they can to really stimulate their brain. So that was one piece. Appreciating, the folks really enjoyed it, right? Stronger Memory is an enjoyable program. The writing, the reading. I remember folks telling us that they would walk with a friend who was also doing the Strong Memory program, and they would tell each other stories. They would write in their journals and then read their journals out loud to their friends. So it was very interesting. Like Teresa was saying, sometimes if they didn't like, we had questions that we asked folks to respond to, like for the 10 minutes of writing, but sometimes they got bored of those questions. So they would write in their journals and share those with friends, or do different things like that, that really was getting at the same exercise, the same type of exercise. So we certainly thought that was interesting, and really think it's beneficial if folks can kind of make it their own in order to keep it going for them. Taxing were some things that some folks did find some of it challenging, right? Some of it challenging on this daily basis, to do it for 10 minutes a day. So that doesn't seem, each exercise for 10 minutes, so a total of 30 minutes. That does, in theory, that doesn't seem like a whole lot of time when we have this 24-hour day to work with, right? But oftentimes when you have your routine, it is difficult to squeeze in an extra thing. So some people in this 12-week period of time of the research found that difficult and oftentimes tiring. Some people, I'm a social worker, I'm probably one of those people, I'm not crazy about math. So even if it's the simple math, I'm like, oh, do I have to do the math? So we had a lot of discussions around the math. And then some people felt that it was too simple, right? So it was, the math piece was taxing for some, confusing for others. So we've talked about that as well. So really this other theme of committing, trying to make it a habit, really liking being accountable to others or working in groups. And then like I was saying before, enhancing the program to make it more of their own. So you'll learn in all three of these studies, we certainly found the cognitive changes, and we also found this importance of this social connection, which we'll talk more about in the third study, where we really were trying to understand that a bit more. We can go on to the next one.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. And I just want to highlight one of the quotes from the focus groups where they said things like, I feel I'll probably do this forever. And we're rooting for each other, not just for memory, but for life. So it really sort of gives you the idea or the sense of that belonging, purpose, and joy that they were experiencing. And then we had a postdoc working with us at the time, and he kind of led this phase 2 study to explore the synergistic effects of social engagement. And so that study design, it was a 12-week randomized controlled trial. It had 50 older adults. 50 older adults experiencing subjective cognitive decline. And so the participants were randomly assigned to one of two groups. The control group was people who just did Stronger Memory, sort of on their own. And then the intervention group was Stronger Memory plus a weekly group social session. or weekly social engagement session, right? We used several measures. So we used the MOCA for this one, not the mini MOCA, but the regular MOCA, to measure cognitive function. The subjective cognitive decline questionnaire, which is a 24-item self-report of perceived changes. We measured mental well-being with the short Warwick-Edinburgh mental well-being scale, a 7-item scale. And then we also did the Good Health Practices Scale, which is a 16-item shortened version of the health behavior checklist. Right, so we got a lot of good data from this. So the main takeaway, I guess, is that both groups improved, which is great. But the intervention group, the one who had the weekly social engagement sessions, showed greater gains across multiple areas, and those included cognitive function. So their MOCA scores increased significantly more than those than the other group, so 19.4 versus 18.9, and then emotional well-being. So the social engagement group showed a significant rise in their mental well-being scores, and that was statistically significant. We also did some analyses that showed a medium to large effect size for social engagement, suggesting that the group interaction amplified the benefits of the brain training. So the real message here is that it was the combination of the cognitive exercises and the weekly group connection that produced the strongest results. I'm going to go back to that for a second just to show you the conceptual model that was used for that study, kind of looking at the combination of cognitive stimulation and social engagement. And the guiding theories underlying these were the biopsychosocial model and the cognitive reserve model, looking at all the factors, so the interplay of the biological, psychological, and social factors in determining health and cognition, that's biopsychosocial, and then the cognitive reserve model, engaging in stimulating activities helps the brain build resilience against age-related changes or pathology, right? And so this model kind of helps us to conceptualize what we were looking for or looking at. And the mechanisms were building cognitive reserve, enhancing social support, and reducing isolation, and increasing self-efficacy and motivation. Now I'm going to go back to the other slide. Yeah, and so the implications, right? Oh, I think I already said this. The only last part is that this study, because he is Korean speaking, he was able to recruit Korean speaking individuals, right? So that was helpful, and it really he was able to show that the Stronger Memory program can be adapted culturally, and the Korean participants had similar benefits. So that was also a great addition. So when we look at the cross-study insights, across all 3 studies, we sort of saw certain patterns. Cognitive impact, so there were consistent improvements in memory and attention across the different studies. Psychosocial impact, there were enhanced social connection, motivation, and purpose among the participants. And then that idea we were talking about earlier about adaptability, right? The intervention works in both independent living and culturally diverse community settings. So when we talked about the first study, right, we had people who were living independently in the villages, and then we had people who were living in CCRCs and continuing care residential communities. And then also the culturally diverse sort of aspect of this. So the Korean speaking participants also benefited from strong memory. And together we think that these findings affirm that strong memory is not just a brain exercise, it's a whole person wellness tool. Some thoughts we have about future directions. Future research could focus on larger, more diverse samples across multiple sites, a long-term follow-up to determine sustained cognitive benefits of the program, and enhanced measures of social engagement fidelity to better understand how and why it works, right? The ultimate goal is really to develop an evidence-based, community-friendly brain health program that improves both cognition and quality of life. In practice, Perhaps Stronger Memory could be integrated into community wellness programs, adult day centers, other community-based programs. It could also encourage partner or group participation to enhance that accountability and emotional support in participating in the program. And it can help practitioners recognize the dual benefits of cognitive and relational aspects as part of holistic care in later life. In terms of policy, so from a policy standpoint, we believe that Stronger Memory aligns with the call for low-cost, scalable, and equitable brain health interventions. It can be delivered in all types of settings, at home, in groups, virtually, and it makes it very accessible to many diverse groups, right? And programs like this could really help reduce healthcare costs by delaying cognitive decline and promoting independent living. So just to summarize, the Stronger Memory program significantly improves, there's the last slide, improves cognitive function in older adults. When paired with social engagement, it also boosts emotional well-being and strengthens community bonds. And it's an accessible, sustainable, and meaningful program, which is a promising model for supporting brain health and connection in later life. And one of our articles, if you saw the title, it says, "I've decided to read out loud for the rest of my life." And that really captures the spirit of the Stronger Memory program, simple daily actions that lead to lifelong well-being. And now we can take some questions.
Yeah. Great. We have one from Mary up in Pennsylvania. Did you use the online MOCA or administered MOCA? And then the follow-up to that too, what was the training of the administrator that ensured the interpretations were consistent?
So we used the online MOCA for our virtual participants. And for our in-person participants, it was the paper and pencil tool. And all of our researchers on this project went through the MOCA training to ensure that they were administering it correctly and interpreting the scores correctly.
Great, thank you. We also have a request to take a look at the next to the last slide. If it had a lot of information, so if we can take a look at that again, that would be wonderful.
Share button.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do remember the mini MOCA was used also online at one point because the large study, some of it took place, of course, unexpectedly during COVID. So we're very fortunate that you can make that transition and that still was a validated tool to be able to use.
Yes, it was fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the slide that you wanted
to
see?
Mary, is this the slide that you were asking to see again? I'm hoping that's the right one.
What comes after this? It was just before the thank you slide.
Possible future directions.
Oh, sorry. Yes, second to
there
last.
it is.
That's the one. Research, practice, and policy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And that's great. I'm glad you brought that up to talking about seeing it because you have researched it in independent living and some supportive care, some crossover to assisted living. We don't have anything published because it really was a CMS Medicare grant to take Stronger Memory into nursing homes. And that finished in June. And because that was a civil monetary penalty grant, you actually were not permitted to test residents. Everything about the grant, it had to be delivered so that it was a benefit to the resident. So all we could ask was residents themselves subjectively, do you feel like your memory may have improved, in what areas? And then we were able to ask staff, since it also was in skilled nursing facilities only. And it was, we had 54% of the residents in nursing homes, in 91 nursing homes. I think in the end we had 774 nursing home residents across the state of Virginia over 3 years take part in a 12-week Stronger Memory program. And 54% felt that they had improved, and the staff agreed with those assessments. But again, very subjective, can't really be published other than us saying, these were the subjective results, and those are coming out soon. But I point that out because I think Emily did a great job mentioning, independent living in the villages, in senior centers, and then also some assisted living. But we also have seen it now in the nursing home setting, which takes a little bit more adaptation, definitely more of the facilitator being there rather than meeting once weekly in the nursing home setting. They chose to meet anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week and put this into their active daily programming. But it was very successful. I think also for sustainment over, I think it was 72% of the 91 nursing homes were continuing Stronger Memory after the 12 weeks because they felt it was a very successful program. And what was also nice, I think, about that one that we don't always get to look at was family members were also involved. They were invited to join, and many did. And that's, I'm by background, I am a long-term care nurse. So that is very exciting to me whenever we can engage family members as well. And of course, in the nursing home in particular, there was a great deal of reminiscing activity going on there, and the residents really enjoyed it. Any other questions? Because we've got the experts here. Let's see. Do we have a sense on average of how long it takes before participants notice an improvement?
That's a good question. So for our research, we did pre-poll. So we have the data on, what they, we asked them questions, the standardized questions that Emily was talking about prior to the Stronger Memory Program beginning and at the end. So systematically, we didn't necessarily get, their perspectives on any changes during that 12-week period that I recall. So yeah, we've done a couple of different studies where we have done that check-in over time, but for this one, I don't think that we did. But it's a great question. It's a great question.
Yeah, it is, Mary. It is a great question. I can tell you anecdotally, so take that for what it's worth. And Michelle and I do a tremendous number of virtual sessions. Usually we have seen improvement around week 7 pretty consistently. But again, that's just us, and that's, virtual groups. So you're talking the majority of individuals are able to tune into Zoom on their own. We only have maybe, I'd say 10% of the attendees have someone else setting them up. So these are people who already have some pretty good cognitive skills to be able to be that technological. However, I can also tell you anecdotally, it surprises us time after time with new groups. Sometimes in 2 weeks, you just see that more engagement. Someone's able to pay attention a little longer. They seem to understand the instructions suddenly. And that goes for the social confidence building as well. I mean, we're not doing a MOCA or anything at that point, but we are recognizing, Michelle and I often afterwards are sending each other messages like, did you notice, this person who maybe had gotten up 14 times in a 1-hour session is now sitting still and really focusing and starting to become more engaged. And same thing, we've also noticed within a couple of weeks when we're asking people, would you like to read this paragraph out loud? Is it always optional? And people who sometimes really have been struggling to communicate several weeks in, suddenly they're volunteering to read, and we're seeing great strides in their capability. So again, totally anecdotal, but it's kind of fun to see. And we get a lot of participants asking us this very question. When am I going to see results? Or someone will say, I've done this every day for a week. I'm not noticing anything yet. And we're like, well, and that's why often we refer back to, the 7 weeks. And then we generally also reference these studies done by George Mason showing, well, the research is looking at 12 weeks. So we really can't tell you anything less than 12 weeks could make a difference. We think it probably does, and we want you to continue, but we have the research on 12 weeks worth. Yeah. I think Diane, I saw, had her hand raised.
You sort of
Diane
answered part
Watson.
of the my remark there, Teresa. With that weekly gathering in the beginning weeks, when you ask, are you seeing any difference? I found it very interesting that sometimes people would say, no, I can't really say that I do. And somebody else was chime in and say, well, you're speaking a little louder. Your mouth seems to be working a little better. And, you're saying you're writing longer, you're filling up the page more. Those are changes. And sometimes people just don't see those things themselves and somebody else doing it. And it's very interesting. I related at other facilitators groups. People have various degrees of intensity on or conscientiousness about doing this. One lady stands out in my mind. She wouldn't eat dinner unless she did her 3 things during the day. That was her guide as to whether things got done or not. And the one group we have, uh, they stopped in October 22, but we're still meeting. And a few of them periodically go back to do all the activities. I myself, Lordy knows I do enough talking out loud and I knew the writing, but I find myself, if I am having to do a presentation or talking, I find that if I do the math, the math to me is a calming influence. It's so simple. And I don't know what you could gather from that, but somebody else noticed the same thing when they talked about it as well. So there's things that you just don't realize until somebody else points it out sometimes. And that reading
Right.
out loud, when we were in COVID, uh, and we got to the point where we could go out, one lady in particular said she had to go out to buy some plants so she could be reading to something living. And, so it's very interesting about how people think about things.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Diane. That's so true. And you're right. Sometimes we're our toughest judge or toughest critic as ourselves, and we don't notice it. We also have been notified by family members before, because the participant doesn't necessarily feel they're making progress, and the family member will say to us, please, please keep the sessions going. We're noticing
Mhm.
an improvement. But yeah, it's hard. And sometimes it's hard when it's subtle as well. So yeah, thank you for
The
that.
other interesting thing when it's in a group, and especially the beginning, these activities you are working for yourself. You're not doing anything comparison. But with the math in particular, oh, I did 5 pages. No, I did 3 pages. I did 8 pages. Oh my goodness gracious! It doesn't matter how old you are. There's a certain competitive spirit in there, but it also hits home. Those who are chief financial officers or CPAs, they automatically, it's a whiz thing for them. So just getting people to not do that so much and recognize, look for yourself, don't be comparing.
Right. Right. Very true. Yes, we once had a very lovely 93-year-old lady on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. Her senior center started the program on Monday, and they were meeting on Mondays and Fridays, coming together, and they handed out our workbook, which is 175 pages, most of it math. And on Friday, this wonderful 93-year-old brought back her workbook, 100% completed the math. And wanted to know if she could have, where was the new book? Yeah, oh, yes, everybody comes to math a little bit differently.
That's right.
We do have a question as well, and we will check with you all if will the slides be able to be shared from today?
Yes, I can send you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes, Michelle and I can send those out. And then Michelle, if you'll write us a note, we will also send out links to the 3 published studies that were referenced today. So you'll have them all in one place.
So yeah, I put we put the names of the articles on each side, but yeah, if you have the links, that's fine too. But you
Great.
should be able to get to them from the slide also.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. We also have another question, and we kind of gotten to this answer in a roundabout way already, but if participants do not continue stronger memory after 12 weeks, what is the effect on their cognitive gains? Great question.
It's a really good question, and we've done studies in the past, and I think this would be a great next study, at least a piece of the methodology, where when we say pre-post, it normally means right before the study starts and then right after the study ends. You can also do post-post, so you could do it right after the study ends, and then 3 weeks later, 6 weeks later, to see if people's perception of their cognition stays. And you could do one group where you ask them to continue the program, one group where you ask them not to continue the program for this certain period of time, and do post testing that way. So that would be great data, objective data to get. In this anecdotal way, as we say, we have to take this with a grain of salt, but I kind of compare it to when we exercise, right? So the brain's a muscle, just like our other muscle, we consider it a muscle. And when we exercise and do it, what do they say out there? 3 times a week, an hour a day, whatever it may be. So if we keep that up, we often say we feel strong, we can carry our groceries in with no problem, walking up and the stairs with no problem. If we stop doing that for a period of time and then just try to do the same thing, carry the same amount of groceries, walk up the same amount of stairs, we tend oftentimes to not feel as good, like we're out of breath more, we don't feel as strong, whatever the case may be. So I think if you compare it to that, if we continue it in some way, we're not always going to be able, like when we're doing research, we really say you really need to do it 30 minutes a day, 3 to 5 times a week. We might not be able to keep that up after the research, but keep that to that extent, to that cadence. But if we keep it up to some level, we might be able to keep the stimulation going. So I think it would be great to get the data behind that. But I think if you compare it to some other studies and what we know about exercise, for example, physical exercise, it might be relative to that.
Mm-hmm. Great question. Absolutely. and a hard one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's worth bringing up too, in the study that you had the 102 participants. I found it fascinating when you all kind of did a follow-up and found out, and I like this because I think people were being truthful. I think I remember that while we were wanting people to do about 30 minutes, 5 days a week, and this is really something we only share with facilitators, not often with participants, because we don't want them to take the easy way out. But Kathy, was it that people on average were actually doing 23 minutes a day, 4 days a week, I think, and when we still were seeing the gains from
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that was so right. I think it's probably the amount of time over a specific period, like 7 days, versus this prescribed 30 minutes, 3 to 5 days, right? So yeah. I mean, it's a good question. It's making me want to look into this more, right? Because the sustainability of it is important, right? And nobody's saying that this reverses anything, but what
Right.
we're saying that it stimulates the frontal cortex to help us feel more confident, to help us be able to retrieve things differently, maybe, right?
Right. Wonderful.
Teresa, is Wendy still doing the original manual, or has she changed to other math and everything?
Wendy, Diane is referencing Wendy Liebrick. I'm sure you all know the story. It's Rob Liebrick, who is the CEO at Goodwin Living, because his mom, Wendy, started showing significant signs of mild cognitive impairment at age 68. So that's now been 12 and a half years ago. He pretty much designed what we call today the Stronger Memory Program as exercises. Mom, could you just please try this? We've heard about some studies done in nursing homes in Japan that were also using these three types of things, not exactly the same, but had a reading component, a writing component, and some simple math. And so Wendy we call her a Stronger Memory champion. As a nurse, I also call her patient zero because she was the first one to really do this program. And so to answer your question, Diane, yes, Wendy still does Stronger Memory every day. She deviates in that she doesn't follow all of the Stronger Memory writing prompts because she has been keeping a diary most of her life. She stopped for periods of time, for years at a time, but since she was diagnosed with MCI, she absolutely continues to write in her diary every day, usually at night. She'll even tell you sometimes she falls asleep. She certainly does the reading out loud. She definitely does the math. She sometimes goes out on her own and finds different math. She uses the Stronger Memory workbook for math. So she's definitely doing that. She's also a bridge player and now a mahjong player, as well as an instructor for those things. So she's getting kind of math and pattern recognition on top of all of this. She reads aloud with 3 different people in her life on a weekly basis to get them going in Stronger Memory and keep them going. Yes, and she's very big on the math. And so I'm glad you brought that up. If she's still doing this, she definitely has fidelity to the program. And if Michelle and I bring up some creative ways to do the math, Wendy will often let us know that this is what has worked for her, and that when she's changed the math to slightly more difficult than we have it in the workbook, that it's been very stressful for her. And that she times herself, and she found out that her times were getting much slower. And she even felt that she was becoming somewhat forgetful. And so her son Rob was like, Mom, this is kind of supposed to be fun and not stressful. And we never want you to do anything you don't want to do. That's part of our program. And so we asked her to back it down. And so Wendy will tell you she really enjoys the single and double digit math, and goes to subtraction, but does not go beyond that. We do have other people, as you mentioned, Diane. We've had professors, CPAs, CFOs who really do not enjoy the math when it is just single and double digit addition or subtraction. But they're often surprised when what we would recommend for them is you get to do 3rd grade math. And if you want to throw a little multiplication in, that's fine. But once you start slowing down to do the math, that's, we really want that rapid processing. And so it's much more focusing on the process and not slowing down. And Wendy will be the first to tell people, no, if you're being slowed down by your math, then that's probably not helping you as much.
I
So
can remember, Teresa, Rob came to do a update at one point, and he had visited his mom, and she had told him, I think I'm regressing. I'm not doing so good. And he said, well, what are you doing different? He says, I'm not doing anything different. I'm doing my stronger memory activities. But he said, okay, well, let's just enjoy the visit. And in the course of the visit, it came out that she decided she was going to do some long division.
mhm.
And the long division is not the simple math. And
Right.
so Rob said, well, let's not try things on your own. Let's go back to doing what you were doing. And as soon as she went back to the simple math, things got better again.
Yeah.
So it sort of adds to what you've been saying about keeping it according to those lines and not worrying about getting into the deeper threads or weeds or whatever you call it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Wendy is now 81. Michelle and I get to talk to her on a weekly basis. She's doing fantastic. Her husband just went through reverse total shoulder surgery, so she is
Well,
the one getting him to physical therapy 3 times a week at a minimum, and making sure he's eating and not doing the things he's not supposed to do. And as I said, she's reading with 3 different people, still coming to a weekly Stronger Memory virtual session as well. So I would say she has absolutely kept her cognitive gains, and sometimes well beyond, I think, what she ever expected. Her reasoning for agreeing to try the program, one of the many reasons, but her biggest was, I have grandbabies and I want to get to know these kids. And so now some of those kids have graduated from high school, have gone on to college. They are a big part of Wendy's life. So she has successfully navigated through that and truly been able to enjoy it. And that really was the most important thing to her when she was given the diagnosis. So,
when
yeah.
there was that interview with her husband and saying, the initial interview and then a more recent one, and somebody asked him, what's your point of view? He says, oh, her memory is better. In fact, she's remembering stuff that I wish she wouldn't have remembered.
Right. Exactly. Interesting update too. Wendy's husband, Howard, who you have seen on videos, admitted that in the beginning he did not want to do Stronger Memory, didn't think he needed it. He does have an accounting background. He's very busy, with numbers every day, very, very active. But about a year and a half ago, he and a college roommate who live on different coasts decided that maybe they would like to revisit Shakespeare, which was their love in college. And they now read back and forth to one another over the phone on a regular
Oh,
basis. And Wendy has been overjoyed with that. And Howard has been very surprised at how wonderful it's been. And now he himself is an avid proponent of reading aloud, which he was not too easily before. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. Any other questions today? We've had some great ones. No, I think we're coming up on time. We want to thank Kathy Tompkins and Emily O'Hara from George Mason, and really have appreciated your take on the research and your willingness to want to interview people and test people who are going through the Stronger Memory program. So really very grateful.